If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stat Show is for you. A weekly show that looks at what's happening in the property market. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a different special guest. This week is Iain McKenzie. We'll come to Iain in a second. Why should you be watching this show? Well, as I say most weeks, the British are obsessed with the property market, and we really do look to the Land Registry and the Nationwide and Halifax indexes to give a flavour of what's happening in the property market. The problem is that the Land Registry is looking at sales that took place 8 or 9 months ago. The Halifax and Nationwide are looking at sales and house prices that took place 2 or 3 months ago. We're looking at house prices and transactions from last week. So by finding out what's happening in the property market, you'll have an unfair advantage over everyone else if you're wanting to know what's happening in the property market. The show itself lasts approximately an hour. The first 35-40 minutes looks at the UK property market, and then the last 20 minutes we focus on a town or a city. And this week we are going to the beautiful town of Maidenhead. On the flight approach to Heathrow, a beautiful, beautiful town, and we'll be looking at who the best estate agents are, looking at various different metrics. Now, if you're not from Maidenhead, you might not want to watch that show, but I thoroughly recommend that you did, because we're going to be using a fancy bit of software that you could, as an agent, use, because it actually proves that you are a better estate agent. If you have competitors who are overvaluing or using cheap fees or any other dodgy techniques like that, this will out them. So therefore, if you are a better estate agent, you can prove it using this wonderful bit of kit. More of that later. This week, as I said, we're joined by Iain McKenzie on week 31 of the show. Week 31 is Monday, the 29th of July, all the way through and including Sunday, the 4th of August. Iain, thank you for joining me today.
You're very welcome, Chris. Thank you, as ever, for asking.
Bless you. For anyone that doesn't know Iain, you've obviously been living in a cave, but Iain is big in the game in the estate agency industry. Big thought leader. He runs an organisation called the Guild of Property Professionals, which is an organisation of around 700 or 800 independent estate agents all around the UK. So what he doesn't know about estate agency is certainly not worth knowing. Okay, Iain, shall we crack on and go and have a look at those Stallaroonies and see what's happening in this week's property market? So here we go. Well, as ever, ladies and gentlemen, we always start with listings because that's where it starts with estate agency. And this week, we have put onto the market as a country 35,115 properties with an average price of £415,000. Year to date, we are on 1,096,000 listings, which when you compare that with 2023, that's 7% higher and 9.7% higher than than all 8 years, and actually 7% higher than 17, 18 and 19. So good levels of stock there. One of my favourite graphs is plotting. Oh, come on, Watkin. The white line on this graph here shows the number of listings compared to 17, 18, 19 and 2023. You can see here that we always have a dip in the early early August, mixing my bloody months up here, mate. We always have a dip for Easter, and then we have 2 particular dips for the May bank holiday. Yeah. Particularly interesting here is the fact that we seem to have an uplift. Did something happen 2 or 3 weeks ago, Iain? Over to you.
There was a whitewash, wasn't it? Was that the cricket or? Oh no, it's the election, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you know? I knew there was a reason we invited you on. That is quite a marked uplift, isn't it? And we haven't seen it in previous years.
It's very telling. I mean, there is always a bounce after the election, and statistically, depending on which party gets in, has historically governed the intensity of the bounce. But actually, with such a strong majority that Labour have now got, and now some more certainty in the market of direction of travel, whether you agree with it or not is irrelevant. It's actually, fingers crossed, we'll be seeing a pretty steady marketplace for the next few months. But that's a very interesting and good result.
Yeah, I mean, the last few weeks has been, last week it was 33.7, the week before 33.4, the week before that 34.8. So, yeah, I mean, what we will often find, ladies and gentlemen, with listings is, and the pattern follows normally the same, take off after January, nice and steady spring, 3 dips for Easter, 2 May bank holidays, and a slight drift off with a dip down for Easter. Now, Easter, you know, I really am mixing my bank holidays.
You've got Easter. Have you had some chocolate? Is that what it is?
No, I think no. I've been interviewing all day today, so probably my brain's addled. But come on, back with it, Watkin. And then we have the August bank holiday dip. So just be aware of that, ladies and gentlemen. We are in August. That will dip. I mean, there's not much more to say. It's quite boring, but there's
there isn't. I mean, with all of these things, a few weeks down the line, we need to look to see what the continuing trajectory of that line is, because you can see a sharper change of the supply and demand curve. So we just need to make sure that the listing to sell ratio maintains itself. That might just be a blip in terms of just the number of stock coming to the market. They're good figures. It's encouraging. More choice for the consumer creates a more fluid marketplace, which has got to be everybody's friend. But so long as it doesn't continue to the detriment of sales, then we're in an okay place.
Indeed. Right, let's get back. So hold on, there we go. Hold on, right. So price reductions. The average price of a property being reduced is £389,000, and this week we reduced 22,172 properties, which, when you compare that with the same week in the previous years, the same week 31, is slightly more. But then what you've got to remember is the number of properties to sell at the moment is hovering around. Well, I've just literally 10 minutes before the show started, I had the stats through. I haven't looked at them, so I'll have to wait till next week. The general stock levels, but the stock levels are running at around the 700,000 mark at the moment.
I saw that.
Which, when you consider that if you move that to probably before COVID, we were probably around the 630, 640 mark. So stock levels are just slightly higher. Does mean that in terms of price reductions, we are reducing on average 1 in 7.5 properties per month. I'm not sure if that's enough or not. What's your thoughts on that one?
With all of these things, I think it depends on your strategy of advice to the customer at time of going to the market. So this week, my sister has just moved. I advised her on price, and she sold at the full asking price. Now there'll be people that'll be saying, well, you didn't put it on the market high enough. Actually, we put it on the market at exactly the right price, because bids came in lower, and then it becomes the art of negotiation, which is through good advice.
How long did her property take to sell?
2.5 weeks.
Okay. Now this is a particularly interesting stat, which I pushed out on social media.
Yeah, I saw that.
And basically, as you know, I like a few stats. And all the data that we use comes from 20EA, using their insights platform. And I talked to their data scientist, and we just chew the fat talking about stats. And I asked him if we were talking about, we asked Stuart, about, is there a relationship between how quickly a property sells versus its chancing of falling through? And okay, these are the two extreme numbers, but when you consider that if a property sells within 25 days, it has a 94% chance of actually exchanging and completing, versus what takes over 100 days, it only has a 56% chance of exchanging and completing. That just blew my mind.
Yeah, I saw that stat, and it puts into black and white what we've always sort of known. But data is God where that's concerned, isn't it? Because it allows you to make informed decisions.
I mean, interestingly, when you actually look at the ranges in between, if someone goes onto social media, the numbers level off at around, if a property sells within 2 or 3 months, it has probably like a 24% chance of falling through, which is more average. That the average is about 24% at the moment for the last 8 years. But it just shows you, if you overvalue, because properties that are overvalued do take a longer time to sell, then your chances of actually getting paid on it. Interestingly, something which I haven't published yet, but probably will have published by the time this comes out, is I wanted to have a look at is there a relationship between the price range of a property and whether it falls through? So it doesn't matter how long it took to sell. It's if it's in a certain price range, does it affect the fall through rate?
Yeah.
And the bottom line is it doesn't. So just give you some. These for all the sales. This is all the sales that fell through in the last 12 months. Up to 200 grand, 22.9, 200 to 300, 23.3, 300 to 400, 23.8, 400 to 500, 24.4, 500 to 600, 24.9. And they're all between 22 and 24. And even over £2 million, it's 21.9.
Okay.
So the price range has no bearing on whether a property falls through or not, but how long a property takes to sell does. Now, interestingly, Stuart, I've asked him, and we all kind of know this, but we need some stats to back this up, is if a property takes longer to get through on a sales progression, is its chances of falling through going to increase?
Okay.
I think anecdotally, we think we know that, but we're going to get some data on that.
Yeah.
So that should be interesting. Right, let's get back.
Yeah. Let's see if the data shows that the expression of time kills deals is the right one.
Indeed. Right then, let's move on to gross sales. Look at this, Ian. That's
Good.
the Dharma bounce.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, anyone watching this show, all of these, whether you're listening to on the old podcast or whether you are listening to this on YouTube, there is a link to all of these graphs. And you are able to download them and use them at your valuations, and you are able to use them internally. All I do ask is that you don't use them on social media, because my daytime job is not interviewing people on sofas or doing shows like this. My daytime job is I'm a property economist and I write articles about local property markets. These are the national stats, and I reserve these for my clients. So I would ask that you don't post these on social media, which I'm more than happy for you to use them in your valuations. That white line there at 2024, I mean, that's really good, isn't it?
It is really strong. Yeah, which will mean that the pipelines that agents are having to manage are significantly up.
Indeed.
Which then puts stress in other parts of the business. But you've got to take the positives where they are, haven't you? And then factor through your business model of how to get them through.
Indeed. Now, of course, we've got to analyse if there's fall throughs. Then we'll look at net sales. But year to date, our gross sales at 766,633 are, I'm just looking at the numbers, 11.3% ahead of 2023 and 6.7% ahead of the average of 17, 18 and 19. The average asking price of a property when it went sold, we don't know how much it actually ended up selling for, but the actual asking price of a property selling 363. Okay, which whilst we're looking at this, it's really important to analyze the difference between this graph here shows the average listing price in red, and the orange line is the average asking price of properties that go sold through the contract. Now, there's always going to be a difference, ladies and gentlemen. That doesn't mean that a property comes on the market at this and sells for that. Lower price properties have a higher propensity to sell, which means that the average is going to be dragged down. It's the gap that we're looking at. And for the most of this year, we've been around early mid-20s, which has not been very good. You'd be pleased to know, Ian, that gap has got quite nice, quite tight, and we're at 14.5%. It's been a long time since we've been at those sort of levels. Long-term 7-year average, 16 or 17%.
Wow, that's good.
Okay, so number of properties sold this year, this month, this week even. Do you know? I should do 2 interviews and a show, but there you go. We'll keep going, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
25,700 with, as I said, an average asking price of 363. And again, showing that graph here. Isn't that interesting that the turquoise, this is week 31 in isolation. The average price of a property selling in 24 is higher. And again, I've been saying, ladies and gentlemen, highest prices at the moment are 6% higher on sale agreed than what they were on in January, based on the pound per square foot figures.
Wow.
So there you go, 14.5. That's really good. We'd like to see that nice and low. Anything on that before we go on to sell fall throughs, Ian?
I think the point with this entire section is, and it is always great. The best estate agents are really good storytellers, in my opinion. And the advice that I gave my sister, which was, please don't be hung up on the price that you achieve for your bungalow. Think about the overall transaction. So in the marketplace that we're in at the moment, and I did some research on what it was that she was eventually going to look to buy. And I realized that if she were to get a really good buy in a really good position and get into position of strength, that I can actually make the overall picture for her better than she imagined that it would be. So if she wanted to get, her original objective was £10,000 more for the eventual sale price of hers, but I'll be able to negotiate probably 15 or 20 grand less on the property that she wants because it's a slightly more saturated marketplace. So the best agents don't think of the transactions in isolation. They think of them as a combined unit. And that's exactly the same when you talk about fees. I used to say to my customers all the time, Mrs. Miggins, please don't make the mistake of thinking that my fee is just related to your sale. You get both sides of the equation with me. And I know that there's Richard Rawlings and Perry Power talking about negotiating for the purchaser. I just used to make sure I got a better fee from the seller. Just a different way of doing it. So think about the overall objective rather than just fixation on price, because it then changes the approach at time of instruction, which then has impacts on all of the withdrawn figures and fall through figures and price reduction figures, etc.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You can see why Ian's on board with the show, certainly giving out lots of value bombs there. Right, let's get back to those Stalaroonies. And we'll now go through to fall throughs. And as we've said for the last couple of weeks, fall throughs have been generally rising, yet sales have also been rising. So whilst, as I said, we're hovering around that 6,500 mark, which again is not pretty. Just to give you an idea, last week it was 6.8, the week before 6, the week before 6.4, 6.2, 6.1, 6, 5.9. You know, the general trend has been upwards. I mean, we're nowhere near what it was in. Did something happen in Q4 2022? Liz Truss budget?
Oh, yeah.
That was
you try and block it from your mind, don't you?
Right, that was Liz Truss. Ignore the drop. I mean, the Christmas dips because, as I said, nothing happens at Christmas. But again, you know, fall throughs are generally rising, and we will expect that, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of sales have been agreed in the spring and they're going to fall over. We've also got some stats coming of the weeks. What week is more likely a sale to fall through? I've got some of those stats coming through as well.
Really? That's interesting.
There you go. You ask him, and 20 EA delivers through me.
Yeah, good.
Sorry. Right, okay. But as we know, I think the more measurement is the sale fall through rate. So, ladies and gentlemen, and let's watch the show here. This is the number of fall throughs, which is said is just over 6,425, expressed as a percentage of the sales agreed. And this week we finished on, I think it was around 25%. There you go, bang on 25%. So there we go. So again, the long-term average, 24.8% is the long-term average, or 24.2, same thing. I mean, it's not brilliant, but it's not end of the world, is it?
No, it's a stat is a stat, and with, as you quite rightly say, more units in, statistically, you're going to get more units. As long as the percentage remains relevant, then it's just an equation, isn't it? It's just a formula.
It is. I mean, what we've got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, is, and I haven't got the updated, but what we've got to remember is this, you know, there's 481,000 properties in agents' sales pipelines. Yeah, that's right. 481,000, which when you consider we're going back to say 17, 18 or 19, there was on average around 360. So if there's a lot more properties in agents' pipelines, our fall throughs are going to be higher as well. What could be interesting, what one must do is compare the total number of fall throughs versus the sales pipeline. I might do that next week or so. I've had time. Right. Fall through. So should we move on to net sales?
Yeah.
So the white line here shows 2024. The important lines here are the orange line, which is the average of 17 to 19, and the pink line, which is last year, 2023.
Okay.
Interesting that, again, the number of net sales has grown in the last few weeks. Again, I'm not sure why, probably general election. Net sales this week, year to date, are, just putting the number up here, 13.6% further on than 2023. So what does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Means that you are going to exchange on 13.6% more homes this year than you did last year. And we are 4.6% further on from the averages of 17, 18 or 19. So what is particularly interesting is, again, let's just refresh our memories there. As for gross sales, we're 6.7% further on, but for net sales, we're 4.6 further on than 17, 18 and 19. That's because our fall through rates are higher. Okay. Any thoughts on this?
No, I think they are what they are, aren't they? It's just trying to manage it. The thing that springs to mind is how our agents, because this is data, but what sits in that data is how agents manage their pipelines and how they categorize units that are sold subject to contract. So are they closed chains? Are they open chains? You know, are they checking their buyers properly, etc.? All of those things will help.
I mean, isn't it absolutely scary that we are around 6 or 7% higher on net sales than we were in 22?
Yeah, it is.
You would honestly, you'd say, no, mate. You're smoking something, but we're not.
I mean, without seeing the data, anecdotally, you'd say the market feels like it's had much more activity this year than last year. This just proves that point.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, I mean, it's actually it's turning that into cash now. That's the biggest challenge in the marketplace, which I know that you're looking at the front end activity, but it's turning your pipeline and turning your sales revenue or sales potential revenue into bankings is now the art of agency.
It certainly is. And I think sometimes as estate agents focus too much on finding the buyer and not so much on how awesome we are at sales progression and our fall through rates. As you know, I'm an absolutely massive fan of reservation agreements. I don't know if you have an opinion on those.
I think a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So if you've got 4 units with no reservation and 1 with, then they can be a little bit challenged. But if it's a nice, neat one unit transaction, then it works quite well. The data does show that they do speed up time and they reduce fall through rate, I believe. You'll probably know better than I.
Yeah. With regard to speed, I haven't got the stats on speed, but what I do have is the fall through rates are single digits. When you consider, as I said, it's 24.2, 24.3. Yeah, and please, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of firms that do reservation. It's not modern method of auction, it's reservation agreements. The government are backing it as well. There are a number of firms out there that do it. I strongly recommend it. And the other thing, which again, I strongly recommend, is outsourced sales progression. And when I say outsource, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to outsource it to a third party. It's actually dedicated sales progression. Yeah. Now I've had arguments, nice arguments, professional arguments, that of a person that runs a 50 branch chain saying it doesn't work. But again, it's like most things. It's not the system, it's how you implement the system. Yeah. But all I know is outsourced sales progression can get stuff through in about 12 or 13 weeks on average. So I'm a big fan of that, because again, negs were all focused on the front end. Oh, I'll get through to that, and then Mrs. Miggins doesn't return her paperwork for a week because it's a bit complicated, and the neg's on holiday, and then I'll do that, and then it's all those little 1 days that make it 19 weeks. I think we're all very guilty of blaming solicitors, and yes, some of them are absolute pain in the backside, so the factory ones particularly, but I think we also have responsibility as an industry on sales progression.
I had a sales progressor within my business. I didn't outsource it. I had one in my business, but they were dedicated to the role. And the thought process was that collective responsibility equals individual application. What does that mean? It's a posh word for, if you've got loads of jobs to do, you do the one that you enjoy the least. Yes. And if you don't like sales chasing, you just sort of wait for it to go through. It does need dedication, and it needs focus, and it needs consistency.
Indeed, and I like the way also that you have to integrate them into the team, because otherwise they end up blaming each other. So they have to be integral to the team. And again, you can do that even with outsourcing.
Yeah.
Right, couple of other graphs, which again, some of the geeks amongst you do have a like of that. You're ex-Countrywide, so you'll love stuff like this. Anything you want to say here?
The front end activity, it looks good this year.
Good stuff. Again, we say this most weeks. Again, it does tend to go over most people's heads. I say that nicely and respectfully. But the orange line, the pound per square foot at sale agreed on a national basis, will foretell what's going to happen to the land registry in 5 months' time. And it always has done since the records began in 2019. Doesn't work so well on a town basis. Regionally, it's not bad, but nationally, that orange line shows you what stuff's actually selling for on a pound per square foot figure. And when we're dealing with the hundreds of thousands of sales, it does match the land registry in 5 or 6 months' time. Hence why I'm therefore predicting that this growth here is the growth that will be seen in the land registry between June and December's figures, which will be December's figures will be out in March next year, 25. And as I said, we are hovering around that 348, 349 figure. When you're considering that we were around the 330 mark, this is 5 or 6% further on. So, this is there's some good news on the way for the government, because obviously they'll take the glory on that, like they always do.
Yeah.
Anything on that before we go?
I remember when you first brought this slide in, and I loved it then, and I love it now. It's a really, really interesting piece of work.
Again, this is the exchanged figure is not the land registry figure, but it's bloody close. I haven't got the land registry figure on this one. I do have on my own private graphs. But if you can imagine, just move that orange line an inch to the right.
Yeah.
You can see the correlation, can't you?
You absolutely can.
Yeah. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Right then. If there's nothing more to say, we will now go to Maidenhead.
Okay.
Okay, Ian, we are using one of my favorite bits of prop tech, which is the Insights platform from 20EA. This piece of kit is available for people on a town basis, a regional basis, and a national basis. The piece of kit is basically Rightmove Plus on steroids with a couple of rockets attached with lasers and glitter balls. This really is absolutely fantastic. I must stress to you, I've not been paid by 20EA to mention it. However, I should be. The amount of times I keep mentioning it is a bit unbelievable. But we have an arrangement where I talk about it, and then they, if you want this piece of kit for your own town, then just contact 20EA. I believe the prices are very reasonable. I'm not going to mention the prices, and I'm not going to mention the prices because I'm not here. Do not get any commission. I just love it. But if you are an agent, whether you are in Maidenhead or not, this bit of kit, if you have got the stats to back up that you are a great agent and you are being constantly battled by overvaluing and agents with long sole agencies and stuff like that, and you're being hit, this, when applied correctly, is absolutely the best. So let us go and have a look. So we're going this week, as I said, to Maidenhead, which for the purposes of this is the postcode SL6. I appreciate that a lot of Maidenhead the tentacles might go a little bit further than that, but for the purpose of this, we are just looking at SL6. We are looking at initially mainly residential sales, but we'll do a bit of lettings at the end. And we are looking at from January the 1st, 2019 to early August 2024. And I think what we will do here is that we will have a look at as I said, and I'm just going to switch off the new homes because I just ruins. I think it just sorts out a better thing. Okay, we'll just wait for that to kick in. Right. So you can see here the number of the number of properties that are coming onto the market. This is new instructions by year. So we'll do full month. So in July, which is the turquoise, 213 properties came onto the market, 202 in July last year, and 271 in July 22. What is particularly interesting there is that normally I would expect a lot more properties to be coming on the market in 24 compared to 21 and 22. And there's not a huge amount of difference there, Ian, is there?
No, it is certainly not following the UK trend, is it?
It's certainly not, no. So let us have a look and see which agents have been putting the most properties onto the market. So we'll start off with Roger Platt.
Yeah.
And this is the percentage of new instructions, which are not new builds since 2019. And I would actually say there that the general drift, there's a general drift downwards from around the mid-teens to around the 10% mark. So I wonder what's been happening with Roger Platt there. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we are not criticizing in any way, shape, or form. All we are doing is just highlighting the numbers. And I'm just checking here. I think Roger Platt are part of the Connell Sequence Group, which obviously the big corporate, there's only one real big corporate estate agent nowadays that's big, and that's the Connell Sequence Group. So Roger, I thought Roger Platt were that. So again, a general drift downwards. So let's go and look at the mighty Romans. What have Romans ever done for us? They appear that their market share has been pretty static around that 10% mark, slight drifting downwards from, around that 10 or 11% mark to around, I don't know, probably about 7 or 8. So the two biggest estate agents seem to be having a slight drift. Not end of the world stuff, but just a slight drift. Okay, let's go and look at Braxton's. So again, pretty standard there. You're part of the guild, Ian. Do you have any guild members here?
We actually don't in Maidenhead, much to my surprise. So I'm sure we've got lots of referrals that have been missed in the referral system. So if anybody watching wants to join us, look me up.
There you go. So again, the guild is an affiliate program where they share ideas and share leads with each other. Again, Maidenhead was picked before I asked Ian. But I think it was only fair that I asked Ian just in case you did have a client. Right, again, looks like Hampton slightly, although we're going to be looking at the upper quartile in a bit, guys. Let's go and look at prospects. So prospects seem to be on the way up. Nice one, guys. Chancellors, down.
Down, yeah.
I'm not sure what happened there, but again, what's that? That is, I don't know, that might have been, that screams at me as an anomaly. I'm not saying that, but that screams to me, it looks like they put on 250 homes. If you look at that, that is screaming at me computer anomaly. Where
maybe change the CRM system or something. I don't know. You have to ask them.
Yeah, that doesn't look right to me. Right, let's look at Pike, Smith, and Kemp. Okay, looks like you had a good 21, but have drifted off. Savills, again, posh. It is posh around there, mate. Andrew Wilson. We'll go down to number 20. Robinson's, Oakwood Estates, one of Foxton's outside the M25 offices. Let's see how well the years ago they're doing. Oh, slight drifting down. It looks like they're going back up again.
Yeah.
I went to see Guy actually at Chiswick Park. If you ever get the chance here, go. Really,
impressive character, I hear.
Very impressive, and they're tech guys as well.
Made
me go, wow. Okay, Purple Bricks. Interestingly, nationally, Purple Bricks in the last 6 months are picking their socks up a treat. Watch out, kids. Waterman Residential, Gascoigne Peas, You Move, Barkerstone, Coopers, Connells, Kirkwood. I tell you what, I'm big fans of Avocado. We'll just look at those guys because they're an early starter. Look at that. Well done, Avocado. Although it is only 4 days in, so let's if you're early doors, then it can affect. But we'll just there you go. We'll go down to 25 just because there you go. And Knight Frank and Keller. There you go. Right. Okay. Average price 167. So we'll go and look at the upper quartile or the upper quintiles. Looking at here, probably around. I'm going to start from the top. I'm looking for probably around 2,000 listings. Now I'm going to go there.
Yeah, 1 million plus is probably about right, I think, for there, isn't it?
Good stuff. So here looks like Savills.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Hamptons. Braxton's, Pike and Kemp, Knight Frank, Foxes.
Hmm.
Okay.
Two clear runners and then a long tail, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. But that is actually what UK estate agency is all about.
Yeah,
You
it
know.
is.
Okay, that's interesting. We'll just take that off. Again, you can see here that, those of you who love your data, ladies and gentlemen, you really can get your feet, get your feet into this. Let's just have a quick look at stock levels. And again, now this is really interesting. On average, number of properties for sale this month compared to 2 or 3 years ago, there's an uplift of about 60–70%. Doesn't look like we've got it in Maidenhead. So 1,066 in July 24 and 839. Guys and girls, that's really, really tight. You haven't seen a huge uplift.
No, I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the competitor analysis tool when they're looking at price reduction averages and timeframes, etc. When we get to that in a moment.
Indeed. Right. Well, let's go and have a look. Okay.
Here we go. This one, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to move it for the last year because I think that's only fair. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is some absolute gold in this, and it's staring everyone in their face. But there is one agent here who is doing really, really well when it comes to actually getting the job done. Can you spot them?
On exchange and sale agreed, it's avocado, isn't it? Percentage-wise.
Ladies and gentlemen, the job of an estate agent is to get the house sold and moved, and that's the only time you're going to get paid, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously. But because most of us are egotistical and we love our listings and we love our market shares and our pie charts, we are going to be looking at new instruction market share, sale agreed percentages. No, ladies and gentlemen, the gold, this is Aussie gold hunters. This is jade hunters in Australia. When you're going a little diamond and it's worth £500,000 pounds, there is some true gold here. You see, property only leaves an estate agent's book if she exchanges or withdraws. Fair goes. So therefore, if you withdraws, you don't get paid. If she exchanges, you do get paid. You see, at this moment in time, just to give you an idea, in this particular postcode, so we'll start off with Roger Platt. Roger Platt in that postcode there's 192 plus 162 properties have left Roger Platt's books in the last 12 months, of those 354, 192 were exchanged and 45 withdrew, unsold. So therefore, Roger Platt can say, Mrs. Miggins, for every 20 houses I put on the market, you have 11 in a 20 chance of moving. Avocado can say, for every 20 houses I put on the market, 17. That's powerful. The average is 49.37. But it just goes, okay, there's some quite tight numbers here, but Oakwoods are doing really, in terms of the mainstream agents, Prospect really well at 66, Oakwoods at 62.
Yeah.
Now, Savills down at 33. Don't you dare beat them up because the bigger house properties have a lower propensity to sell. And I'll just prove that to you, ladies and gentlemen. So actually, on the scheme of things, Savills might be the biggest agents in the upper quartile over £1 million, but of the properties that have left their books, and there's 62 have left their books, 40 plus 22, 62, 35 have exchanged, but let's have a look, Knight Frank. So therefore, if I was Knight Frank, I'd be saying, Mrs. Miggins of your posh £1 million house, you've got nearly twice as great a chance of selling with me than Savills. I'm not criticising Savills at all. I'm a big fan of them, but the stats are the stats.
Yeah. There's a saying, isn't there? Data doesn't care about your feelings.
Indeed.
Having said that, of course, there is the scenario, though, Chris, where avocado with 71 units, every single unit has a greater percentage value because they've got less of them.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. I've lost you. I've lost you. You're just a name at the moment. Have I lost you?
Oh, I'm still here. I don't know where the camera. Let me just. There you
Oh,
go.
there.
Camera back on. I must have pressed the my toolbar. Maybe I'm the toolbar. Maybe no.
Go on, explain to the ladies and gentlemen what for
Yeah,
those.
the lesser the number, the higher the percentage value of an individual unit. So if you've got
Yes.
1,000 units, then each one is worth a 0.83%, and if you've got 100 units, then each one's worth 1%. So to be a real like for like, you'd have to see it across the consistency of the same numbers. But you can't actually argue the fact that they can only transact against the percentage, against the number of units that they've actually got.
Well, if you look, there's chancellors put on the same number of houses. Okay, I know.
Yeah.
Number of listings. The listings are not all the ones that have left your books. Oh, there's going to be a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well done, Avocado. And they're one of the self-employed models, which again, I think is starting to, a lot of people take a bit more notice on that. So, I mean, again, I will not mention their names, but there was in the top 25 estate agents, Ian, there was one agent in the whole country whose exchange ratio was a country mile better than the competitors. Like a massive, the last few years, we'll not mention their name here, a country mile better than their competitors. They had the same data on here, but they just couldn't see the wood for the trees. There were an estate agency chain that are, how can we say, not particularly loved, but their ratios were absolutely amazing. And if I had their ratios, I would have been shouting about it. Interestingly, those ratios have dropped a lot recently.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so let's just have a quick look. Fall through rates. So again, here we are. Here's a fall through rate. Foxton's fall through rate is quite low. Yeah, that's going to be really good. But again, they're not selling. Are they selling that many? No, not really. So they're not selling many. So, but then hold on a second. Romans fall through rate at 12%. That's really good, even though they are selling 114. So their fall through. Let's just have a look at Avocado. Well, their fall through rate should be low as well. I mean, the average is 24.98, but there's some low numbers here. Let's see who's working their stock. So Roger Platt's 46, Romans 57, Oakwood's 58, Braxton's 44. Well, you can see that's down there. Oh, that's a bit. Oh, 73. Who's that? Chancellors, really, so Chancellors reduce nearly 3 out of 4 of their houses. Big numbers.
And selling 50%. Interesting.
Anything on this before we move on to the next screen?
I actually do think the price reduction change, the withdrawn percentage, and then an overview of your STC rate is really clear in terms of what your valuation policy is when you're talking to your customer before you're instructed. So those that are buying the instruction, those that are technically overvaluing, you can get all of that information from this document.
Interesting. Right. Anything else before we move on then?
No.
Right, let's move on. Okay. This particular screen, huge amount of data here, ladies and gentlemen. And let me explain what each one means. Okay, so we're looking at a 12-month period, looking back in time. And the order that we're in is the number of instructions. So what's happened here is 20EA have looked at all of Roger Platt's 331 listings and all of Roman's 175 listings and so on and so forth. And what they have then done is they've applied an automated valuation model to your listings. So like a Valpal or other whatever. And then they've looked at what you put it on the market for and then what they think it's worth. And then what they've then done is applied, okay, how much more or less have you put it on the market for compared to what we think it's worth? So therefore, Roger Platt on average overvalued by 2.92%. The average is 2.07, which is there. There's some absolute beasts of some numbers. I mean, last week we were at a different town and the numbers were 1.5. I mean, there's some big overvaluing going on there, mate, isn't there?
Yeah. According to this data, absolutely yes.
2 or 3%.
Yeah. So there are some interesting stats that sit within this, aren't there? I know you're gonna find them in a minute. But when
Okay.
you sort of cast your eye across the screen to variance to average and in terms of price achieved, some really interesting points on this.
Okay, so then the price achieved is we look the 20EA, then look at what the house originally came on the market for, and then what did you actually end up selling it for? And you can see here that Roger Platt on average achieved minus 3.22% lower than the original asking price. Romans achieved 0.53 above the original asking price. And then as we can see here, we go down, we've got some 5s and 6s. We've got some in double digits. Now, what I would just say, just for the record, is this. There's some big numbers down there. And again, when you're dealing with small numbers, there tends to be a few more anomalies in the system. And if say some of those, and we will not mention their names, I've got big numbers, if they're dealing with, as I said, new homes and small numbers, it can be anomalies in that system. So we don't normally get this sort of context here. And again, Knight Frank are a big agent dealing with big, massive houses. So again, you've got to just take that slightly with a pinch of salt. But I think it's just a good way to give a flavour. So the problem with percentages, most people don't get them. So what 20EA have done is said, right, an average property, if an average property came on at 750 in Maidenhead, what would all the different agents achieve for it? And it said, according to 20EA, and again, if you have issues with this data, please speak with 20EA.
Yeah.
Okay. So Roger Platt would get 747, which is 10,700 more than the average. So again, Roger Platt could say, we'll get you 10,700 more than an average Maidenhead estate agent. Romans will get 35,000. And there are others down here which will get you more or less. Again, look at avocado. Again, they could, now again, you've got to be anyone who's a Maidenhead agent, if you take this data and just publish it, you are opening yourself up for some real, you're not protected. If you want to use this data in your marketing, you have to purchase the Insights platform, and 2, you have to use the 20EA phrases to protect yourself from the ASAA. I'm able to do this because I'm not marketing. I'm just commenting as a property data analyst. So you can't use this in your marketing, but it's a great way to judge yourself between the different agents. But there's some real massive differences there, isn't there?
Yeah, there are. There absolutely are.
Okay. Anything else before we move on and look at time?
No, that's good. The only Fine and Country, we do have a self-employed person that covers that region, and it looked like he was doing okay. So that was good.
Good stuff. Right, there we go. Right, let's move on. So on average, it takes 71 days in the last year to get a property through from no instruction to sale agreed. The year before, 63 days.
Yeah.
It currently takes 118 days to get a property through from sale agreed to completion, compared to last year of 124. That matches the national figures. Again, if you ask most agents, if I said, the average time it takes from sale agreed to completion or exchange is down a week, most people would laugh at you, but those are the stats. So we can see here that there is quite a wide variance between how long an agent takes to sell the property and then how long to get it through. So you can see here that avocado here take on average 31 days to find a buyer, new instructions sale agreed, and 104 days to get from sale agreed to completion, which means a total of 135 days.
Yeah.
And then we go and have a look all the way up to Hamptons that take 240 days from new instruction.
Yeah.
That is a massive
Big difference.
Let's go and look at number 1 agent, Roger Platt. They're taking 183 days. So again, if I was using these stats, I would be saying, subject to them making sure that you keep the right side of the law, the advertising statements. If you want to sell your house, I'll sell your house in, well, the averages are probably around 183.
Yeah.
So I'll sell your house. I'll get you moved within 2 months quicker than the average.
It does depend on the marketing strategy of the agent, though, because I've just advised my sister to say, right, keep the property on the market. Don't necessarily do viewings. Don't alienate your buyer, but wait until they've had the survey done, a mortgage offer.
True.
So this will be a CRM in how quickly do you change it from for sale to SSTC? So
True. That's why we've got. Surely that's why we've got to look at the whole one and not just. We've got to look at the individual parts, but we've got to look at the whole lot as well. If if there are some agents where the blue line is so far off and the
Yeah.
line is tiny because they don't mark it sold until
So yeah, so Foxtons would be the first one that jump out the page looking at the top section. They maybe they have that strategy. I don't know. Guy would know. I don't.
Good stuff. Right. Anything on that? Anything else before we go
No.
and look at the rental data? Okay, so here's the rental data. Let's just have a quick look. I always like to look at what's happened to average rents. So the average rent in 2019 in Maidenhead, 1,357. 1,842.
Big jump.
Big jump. Would it still surprise you, though, that rents, even after inflation in the UK, are still 4% lower in real terms than what they were in 2016?
I think again that's one of those stats that technically correct, but doesn't feel like it.
Doesn't feel like it. You've
Yeah.
absolutely hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
My daytime job is I ghostwrite articles, as you know, but ladies and gentlemen, not watch it. But my daytime job is I create local content on local property markets because local homeowners are interested in the property market and the value of their own home. And as I said at the Guild conference, Ian, as I'm sure you're aware, 3,600 homeowners who were on the market chose out of 10,000 interviewed, chose their estate agent based on their agent's local property market knowledge.
Yeah.
I bet you a pound to a penny, if we go and went to look at every estate agent, none of them are talking about the property market. So all of my advice is this, is if you are an agent in Maidenhead and you want more business, start talking about the local property market. If you need some free templates, I know I do it for you service, but if you want some free templates, just send me a DM or send me a message. I'll give you my number, 07950 147 572. Send me a message and I will send you some free stuff that you can start talking about the local property market to local people, and people will be attracted to you. It's a winner. It's what bloody Savills do. Savills been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get back to let's just have a look here. So first thing that screams at me is this, Ian.
Open rent. Yeah.
It's an open rent.
Wow, look at that. That's interesting.
Now, I've got some data on its way because I asked the guru of science, what proportion of open rent growth has come from taking properties off other agents? Okay. Now I haven't got the data yet, but the numbers were a sizable chunk.
Yeah.
Sizable.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because there was a stat I heard a couple of years ago that 50% of landlords don't use an agent.
Yeah, that's about right. So
yeah, so that's a really interesting question to find out where is their growth coming from.
Yeah, a lot of agents are running around saying, well, open rent don't go on Rightmove anymore. There's an opportunity there for you. Find the address, go to the land registry. Again, if anyone watching this wants to know, if from a land registry certificate it says you can't find the landlord, it says they look at the address. Most of the time you can. If you send me a text message on the number I've just mentioned, and you can say finding landlords in London, I'll know exactly what you're talking about because it works just as well anywhere in the country. Send me a text message and I will send you a video on how to find landlords' contact details, even if the land registry says they live at the property. And you'll find them. It takes a bit of time and it's a bit of hard work, but it does work. So anyway, let's just have a quick look. So let's go look at Roger Platts. Again, we're just giving a flavour here of where the new, this new instructions will be an indicator of stock levels. So it shows you there that prospects are doing really well. Now, we don't know if prospects have made an acquisition or not, but we're just looking. Let's look at Romans, Chancellors, Hamptons, Braxtons. So it looks like everyone looks like they are steady or dropping, apart from prospects. I'd love to know what prospects have done. Could be an acquisition.
Could be, yeah.
Or it could be they're absolutely red hot. We'll just go down to number 20. Okay, we'll tell you what. We'll do 25. There you go. Okay. I think that's a lot. Anything on there
Yeah.
before you do final
No.
closing thoughts? Okay, over to you, Ian. Final thoughts.
I told the story of my sister. Pricing at your data that you provided last week, Chris, about time to sell versus eventual completion ratio is where it's at in agency. Mind the gap is the expression that I used, or always use, is don't get fixated on the price of the house you're selling. Think about the overall transaction. Same with agent's fee. And mind more landlords if you want to get a company that's got value to it.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Ian, exceptional value as always.
Thank you.
You can see why he's the boss man of a huge organization of agents. It's very well thought of, and we'll get you back all being well in a few months' time, my friend. But more importantly, thank you for watching the show. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you get a lot from it. If you've got any comments, put them out on the YouTube description comments, or send me a DM. You have my telephone number. I'll just give it to you again, 07950 147 572. For the how to find landlords contact details, just say finding landlords in London, and I'll send you the video. If you want some free templates on writing your own articles, just send me a text message saying free stuff, and I will send that to you as well. And if you've got any comments, as I said, put them in. So in the YouTube channels or on social media. So thank you, Ian, and thank you for watching.
Welcome.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.
See you again, Chris. Cheers.